September 1939. The North Atlantic carries more than salt and ice. It carries the beginning of a global storm. Newfoundland, a remote Canadian island, 300 miles northeast of the Canadian mainland, jutting into the Atlantic like a weathered sentinel. This is where the war would be decided. Not in the trenches of Europe, not in the deserts of North Africa, but in the fog-laden skies above a place most of the world barely knew existed. The coordinates are precise: 48.96 degrees north, 54.26 degrees west. Gander, an airfield rising from the boreal forest surrounded by spruce and rock, battered by winds that can reach 60 miles per hour in an instant. The climate here is unforgiving. Summer brings fog so dense that visibility drops to 200 feet. Winter transforms the landscape into a white void where temperature and wind combine to create conditions that ground most aircraft. Rain arrives without warning. Storms materialize in hours. The ground itself, rocky, unpredictable, perennially damp, makes construction a constant battle against nature. Yet here, in this isolated corner of North America, Canada is building something the world does not yet understand. The airfield emerges from the landscape like a concrete scar. Runways stretch across the tundra. Hangars rise from the permafrost. Barracks are constructed in haste. Fuel depots are scattered across the facility. The sound of construction, the driving of rivets, the roar of bulldozers, the shouts of workers fills the air day and night. Blackout conditions are maintained with religious precision. At dusk, all lights are extinguished. The base becomes invisible to the outside world. This is September 1939. Hitler's armies have invaded Poland. France has fallen. Britain stands alone. The Atlantic has become a hunting ground for German U-boats, their gray hulls silent beneath the waves, searching for any vessel carrying supplies, weapons, or hope to the British Isles. And in Washington, D.C. and London, the debate rages in classified conference rooms. How do we get American-built fighter aircraft to Britain without losing them to German submarines or the Luftwaffe? The solution is impossible. The distance is too great. The aircraft lack the range. No plane in the world can carry enough fuel to cross the Atlantic while carrying a pilot and the machinery of war. The technology does not exist. The logistics cannot work. Conventional military doctrine says it cannot be done. But Canada has a different idea. Canada has a secret. Enter squadron leader Donald Llewellyn Curtin. Born in Saskatchewan in 1914, Curtin represents a new breed of military officer, young, ambitious, technically minded, capable of thinking beyond conventional borders. By 1939, he is already embedded in the highest classified circles of the Royal Canadian Air Force. He has been briefed on something that, if leaked to German intelligence, would transform the strategic calculus of the entire war. The assignment arrives in a sealed envelope marked, "For your eyes only." Curtin reads it once, then burns it. His orders are clear. Coordinate the establishment of a transatlantic aircraft ferry system. American-built fighter planes, Republic P-47 Thunderbolts, North American P-51 Mustangs, Supermarine Spitfires modified in Canadian factories, must be delivered to Britain, not by ship, not dismantled and transported in cargo vessels vulnerable to U-boat attack. They will be flown across 600 miles of open ocean by ferry pilots, civilian and military aviators trained for a mission that, if they fail, means death in the cold Atlantic waters. The audacity of the plan is matched only by its necessity. Britain cannot survive without aircraft. American factories are producing fighters at unprecedented rates, but the pipelines cannot reach across an ocean controlled by German naval and air power. Someone, somewhere, had to solve this problem. That someone was Canada. The British Air Ministry had approached the RCAF with the concept in 1940. Canadian engineers and planners recognized immediately what others had missed. Newfoundland was not a liability. It was a geographical solution. Its location, roughly equidistant between the American Northeast and the British Isles, made it a perfect staging point. From Newfoundland, with careful planning and new technologies, aircraft could be delivered across the Atlantic. But the plan required absolute secrecy. German intelligence, the Abwehr, the SD, the Wehrmacht High Command, must not know that an aerial bridge was being constructed. If Berlin learned of this transatlantic ferry route, countermeasures would be inevitable. U-boat patrols would be concentrated in the transit corridor. Luftwaffe units in France would be repositioned to intercept aircraft departing from Newfoundland. The entire operation would collapse before it began. Curtin understands the weight of this reality as he surveys the airfield from the control tower. The wind batters the structure. Below, fuel trucks move silently through the darkness. Pilots are being trained in unlit hangars. Flight plans are being calculated with precision in locked rooms where no German agent could ever penetrate. The operation has a code name, Ferrying Command. But in the inner circles of the RCAF and RAF, it is known by a more descriptive term, the impossible bridge. Every aircraft delivered alive changes the balance of power in the Atlantic skies. Every aircraft that crashes, lost to weather or mechanical failure, represents a setback that cannot be immediately replaced. The mathematics of war are unforgiving. Berlin calculates that such an operation cannot work over extended distances. The risk is too high. The logistics are too complex. Weather will eliminate half the flights. Mechanical failures will account for a quarter. Navigation errors will account for the rest. But Berlin did not account for Canadian determination. By September 1939, Gander Airfield is not merely a military installation. It is the linchpin of a strategy that has not yet been publicly announced, a secret that sits in the most classified briefing files in 3 nations, a gamble that the entire Royal Air Force's survival may depend upon. The wind picks up across the airfield. Visibility drops to near zero, and yet, in the operations center, lights burn bright behind blacked-out windows. Flight plans are being filed. Pilots are receiving their orders, and Squadron Leader Curtin watches it all unfold, knowing that what happens here, what remains hidden here, will determine whether Britain survives the Nazi onslaught. The war is about to be redirected by a secret that the entire German intelligence apparatus is, as yet, completely unaware exists. October 1940. The first intelligence briefing arrives on Curtin's desk marked, Eyes Only Classified. The report is brief, precise, devastating in its implications. German air attaché in Lisbon reports unusual aircraft movement through Newfoundland. Request clarification on American plane production routing. Berlin has inquired why no transatlantic ferry operations have been detected. Suggests operation may be logistically impossible. Assessment. Berlin believes American fighters cannot reach Britain across open ocean. Maintain operational secrecy at all costs. What Berlin does not know, what German intelligence cannot yet fathom, is that at that exact moment American-built aircraft are already being assembled in Canadian hangars, crated, inspected, fueled, prepared for something the world has never attempted. The first batch arrives in late October 1940, 24 Republic P-47 Thunderbolts, shipped from the Curtiss Wright manufacturing plant in Buffalo, New York. The massive fighters, weighing over 13,000 pounds each, are disassembled into component parts and transported by rail through the night. Canadian railway workers, sworn to secrecy under military decree, move the crates through the darkness. No identification marks, no documentation visible from outside the trains. The entire operation moves like a ghost through the continental rail system. At Gander, the reassembly begins. Mechanics work in shifts around the clock. The sound of rivet guns echoes through the hangars. Electrical systems are tested in isolation chambers. Fuel systems are purged and inspected. Engines are run individually, their roar muffled by acoustic barriers and blackout fabric. Each aircraft must be assembled to absolute perfection. A single mechanical failure at 15,000 feet above the Atlantic Ocean means the pilot and the fighter sink into the dark water below. But assembly is only the first phase. The real impossibility lies in the navigation. The Atlantic is 1,600 miles of emptiness. No radio beacons, no established air corridors, no checkpoints. A pilot departing from Gander must fly due east on compass heading 090 degrees, maintain altitude despite weather, monitor fuel consumption with precision, and arrive somewhere over the Irish Sea or the English coast. Navigational error of even 5 degrees means missing Britain entirely. The aircraft would have insufficient fuel to reach land before ditching in the Atlantic. The solution is the Great Circle route. Rather than flying the shortest distance, which appears to be a straight line on a standard map, navigators calculate the true shortest path across the curved surface of the Earth. The mathematics are complex. The execution is precise. Ferry pilots receive specialized training in celestial navigation, using stars, the sun, and mathematical calculation to determine their position across the open ocean. Some pilots navigate by radio direction, finding stations positioned strategically across Newfoundland, Greenland, Iceland, and Ireland. Others rely on dead reckoning, calculating speed, wind, heading, and time to determine position. It is a system built on precision and faith. The first operational flights launch on November 15, 1940. 4 P-47 Thunderbolts depart Gander at dawn. The weather is marginal. Visibility 3 miles, ceiling 800 feet. Winds from the northwest at 25 knots, gusting to 35. Conditions that would ground most military operations, but the operation cannot wait for perfect weather. Every day of delay strengthens Germany's grip on the Atlantic. The pilots, Squadron Leader James Sutton, Flight Lieutenant Peter Morrison, Flight Officer Richard Hayes, and civilian ferry pilot Tom Connolly, receive their final briefing in a locked operations room. Maps are spread across a wooden table. The Great Circle route is marked in red pencil. Radio frequencies are written on their flight plans. Fuel calculations are triple-checked. The forecast shows they will encounter severe icing conditions over the Atlantic, temperatures dropping to minus 40 degrees Celsius, headwinds that may reduce ground speed to 150 miles per hour. Sutton reads the briefing calmly. He folds the map, tucks it inside his leather flight jacket, looks at the other pilots. Gentlemen, we're flying an impossible mission. The Germans don't think this is possible. Berlin believes the range is too great, the weather too unpredictable, the logistics too complex. Today, we prove them wrong. The 4 P-47s taxi to the runway. Engines roar. The sound echoes across Newfoundland. Any German listening post monitoring wireless frequencies would hear it, but intercepting the signal and understanding its significance, this is beyond German intelligence assessment. To Berlin, the radio traffic appears to be routine, training flights, nothing more. The fighters accelerate down the runway, speed builds, 80 miles per hour, 100 miles per hour, 120 miles per hour. The nose lifts. The wheels leave concrete. 4 Thunderbolts climb into the gray Newfoundland sky and vanish into the Atlantic weather. For the next 16 hours, they are gone. Completely. No radio contact, no updates, no way to verify they are still airborne or have crashed. Curtin stands in the operations room, staring at the clock. Time moves differently when men are flying into the unknown. 1100 hours. Weather briefing received from Iceland. Aircraft spotted at waypoint. Fuel consumption nominal. 1530 hours. Radio transmission from Flight Officer Hayes. Dublin Tower, ferry flight from Gander. Position 300 miles west of Ireland. Fuel remaining 45 minutes. Request priority landing. 1545 hours. All 4 P-47 Thunderbolts land in Ireland. The pilots climb out of their cockpits exhausted, exhilarated, alive. By nightfall, the report reaches Gander operations. The first successful transatlantic ferry flight is complete. The implications are seismic. If 4 fighters can cross the Atlantic, then dozens can. Hundreds, perhaps thousands. The delivery pipeline that Germany believed impossible now has a working proof of concept. Aircraft production bottlenecks suddenly disappear. The limiting factor shifts from manufacturing to transportation. Within weeks, the operation expands. Gander becomes a throughput base, a facility designed to rapidly process, assemble, and dispatch American-built aircraft to Britain. The mission logs show increasing numbers. November 1940, 8 aircraft delivered. December 1940, 24 aircraft. January 1941, 56 aircraft. February 1941, 89 aircraft. The numbers are climbing exponentially. Hangars are filled with arriving crates. Assembly lines operate in 3 shifts. Fuel trucks service aircraft around the clock. The runway is extended. Additional barracks are constructed. Security is heightened. Armed guards now patrol the perimeter. Anyone attempting to photograph the facility is arrested on site. The codename in classified communications becomes simply the bridge. And in Berlin, German High Command receives increasingly alarming intelligence reports. Fighter aircraft are arriving in British squadrons at unprecedented rates. Production capacity appears unlimited. The aerial balance over the channel is shifting. Somehow, against all strategic logic, America's aircraft production is reaching Britain. But how? Berlin, May 1941. The Reichsluftfahrtministerium, the Reich Air Ministry, occupies a massive building on the Wilhelmstrasse. Inside, on the 3rd floor, Luftwaffe intelligence officers study aerial photographs, combat reports, and production statistics with mounting alarm. The pattern is undeniable. General Oberst Ernst Udet, Chief of Air Armament, reads the latest fighter strength assessment prepared by his intelligence staff. The numbers are devastating. RAF Fighter Command, August 1940, 1,063 operational aircraft. RAF Fighter Command, May 1941, 2,847 operational aircraft. The expansion has accelerated beyond all German predictions. The Luftwaffe calculated that British aircraft production, combined with attrition from combat, would keep the RAF in a perpetual state of weakness, unable to challenge German air superiority, forced to conduct defensive operations only. This calculation was based on proven data. British aircraft factories could produce roughly 300-400 fighters per month. Attrition would exceed production. Britain would gradually be starved of combat aircraft. Victory was merely a matter of time. But something has changed. In March 1941, intelligence reports begin arriving at Luftwaffe headquarters, describing an anomaly in the supply chain. Aircraft carriers arriving in Britain from North America, but not ferried, flown. The concept seems impossible. German technical analysts have calculated the distances, the fuel requirements, the navigation challenges. Their conclusion: a fighter aircraft cannot cross the Atlantic with a pilot. The range is insufficient. The weather is too unpredictable. The undertaking defies aeronautical engineering. Yet the aircraft are arriving. General Oberst Udet orders an immediate assessment. How is this possible? Every available source is consulted. Luftwaffe weather reconnaissance flights over the Atlantic report unusual patterns. Aircraft departing from Canadian bases. Radio intercepts suggest flight operations over Newfoundland. Intelligence agents in Lisbon and Dublin report seeing American-built fighters appearing in RAF squadrons with increasing frequency. The Abwehr, German military intelligence, launches an investigation. Agents are dispatched to neutral territories. Sweden is canvassed for intelligence. Spain provides limited information. American aircraft definitely passing through the Atlantic transit corridor. But how? The Abwehr traces every available scrap of information. A German agent in Ireland files a report. Multiple American fighter aircraft observed landing at Irish airfields. No escort flights. No large transport vessels. Aircraft appear to have flown directly across Atlantic. Source reliability high. The report reaches Berlin on May 15, 1941. General Oberst Udet schedules an emergency briefing with Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring, Commander-in-Chief of the Luftwaffe. The situation is explained in technical detail. American-built fighters, Republic P-47 Thunderbolts, North American P-51 Mustangs, British-built Spitfires with American engines, are being delivered to Britain at rates that suggest a systematic, organized operation, not sporadic ferry flights, not experimental attempts. An established supply pipeline. Göring's reaction is predictable. Rage. This is impossible. How are they crossing the Atlantic? Where are they departing from? Why have we not detected the aircraft? The answers are incomplete, but the intelligence staff provides its best assessment. The aircraft are likely departing from Newfoundland. The operation is being conducted with extreme secrecy. Radio traffic is minimal. Aircraft are likely using navigation techniques that avoid detection. Most critically, the operation is geographically positioned where German air and naval power cannot effectively intercept. This last point proves most critical. The German naval strategy in the Atlantic relies on U-boats, diesel-electric submarines operating on the surface at night to recharge batteries. Approximately 150 U-boats are currently operational in the North Atlantic. Their mission? Sink merchant vessels carrying supplies to Britain. A single U-boat can intercept a ship traveling at predictable speeds on established sea routes. But aircraft crossing at altitudes between 10,000 and 20,000 feet, traveling at speeds exceeding 400 miles per hour, operating on unpredictable flight paths, these cannot be intercepted by submarines. Furthermore, U-boats require visual surface contact or acoustic detection. Aircraft flying at altitude generate no acoustic signature detectable from submarines. Visual detection is impossible. The U-boat fleet, Germany's primary instrument of Atlantic interdiction, is rendered useless against ferried aircraft. German air defenses present another option, but geography eliminates it. The Luftwaffe maintains fighter squadrons in occupied France. These aircraft possess range of approximately 600 miles on combat patrol. Newfoundland lies 2,100 miles from the nearest German-controlled airfield. The aircraft being ferried across the Atlantic depart from North American soil, cross the Atlantic over the open ocean where no German fighters can reach, and arrive over Ireland, territory where the Luftwaffe maintains no forward air bases capable of sustained operations. The strategic geometry is perfect. Germany has no capability to interdict the operation. By June 1941, German intelligence acknowledges the reality. An aerial bridge has been established between North America and Britain. American aircraft production, unlimited by German bombing, is now being transported across the Atlantic on a systematic basis. The RAF is being reinforced at rates Germany cannot match. The implications ripple through German strategic planning. In July 1941, Colonel Adolf Galland, commander of Jagdgeschwader 26, a Luftwaffe fighter wing, submits a classified assessment to Luftwaffe headquarters. The document is blunt. Enemy fighter strength is increasing rather than decreasing. Sources indicate American-built aircraft are being delivered to Britain via transatlantic ferry operations. Production capacity appears unlimited. Current Luftwaffe fighter inventory, 1,200 operational aircraft. RAF operational fighters, 2,900 aircraft. Trend, RAF advantage increasing. Recommendation, revise strategic assessment. Air superiority over Britain is becoming increasingly unlikely. General Oberst Udet reads the assessment with grim comprehension. The strategic calculus has shifted. The Luftwaffe was designed to achieve rapid air superiority, then support ground operations. Sustaining air superiority in a prolonged conflict against an enemy with unlimited aircraft production was never the design parameter. Germany's strength lies in tactical air power. Germany's weakness lies in industrial output. The transatlantic ferry operation has exposed this weakness. In Berlin's strategic planning rooms, options are discussed. Can submarine patrols be concentrated to interdict the ferry routes? The assessment, the Atlantic is too vast. Ferry aircraft fly at altitudes too high for effective U-boat interdiction. Can Luftwaffe squadrons be repositioned to Iceland or Greenland to intercept the ferry flights? The assessment, Germany lacks the logistics, the bases, and the sustained air superiority necessary to conduct such operations. The geographic and logistical realities are immutable. Germany cannot reach Newfoundland. Germany cannot patrol the Atlantic at altitudes necessary to intercept ferried aircraft. Germany cannot establish forward bases in Greenland or Iceland. The technology, the range, the industrial capacity simply do not exist. By August 1941, Luftwaffe intelligence concludes that the transatlantic ferry operation is uninterruptible. The only strategic response available is acceleration of German fighter production and reassignment of Luftwaffe squadrons to defend German airspace against increasing British bombing operations. The strategic initiative has shifted. What began as an impossible idea, ferrying fighters across the Atlantic, has evolved into the primary mechanism by which American industrial capacity directly reinforces British air power. The operation is working. It cannot be stopped. It will continue indefinitely. In the operations rooms of German High Command, officers note the reality in classified journals. The American aircraft pipeline is now fully operational. Throughput estimates suggest 150-200 aircraft per month minimum. Interception appears impossible. Strategic assessment, German air superiority over Britain is no longer achievable. Long-term consequence, Germany must prepare for offensive air operations by superior enemy air forces. The war in the air has been fundamentally transformed, and Germany is powerless to prevent it. September 1942. Gander Airfield has been transformed beyond recognition. What began as a remote Canadian installation has become an industrial war machine. The runway has been expanded to 10,000 feet, one of the longest in North America. 12 massive hangars cover the landscape. Fuel storage capacity has reached 2 million gallons. Assembly lines operate simultaneously on multiple aircraft types. The barracks hold over 3,000 personnel, pilots, mechanics, navigators, support staff, security personnel, all sworn to absolute secrecy. The operation is no longer concealed. By late 1942, Luftwaffe intelligence confirms what was once theoretical. The transatlantic ferry operation is the primary mechanism delivering American air power to Britain, but confirmation comes too late. The strategic opportunity to interdict the operation, had Germany possessed the capability, has passed. The bridge is established. It is functioning. It is unstoppable. The statistics are brutal in their clarity. From November 1940 to September 1942, a period of 22 months, Gander Airfield has processed and delivered 4,128 aircraft across the Atlantic. The monthly throughput has increased exponentially. November 1940, 4 aircraft. June 1941, 87 aircraft. December 1941, 156 aircraft. June 1942, 312 aircraft. September 1942, 487 aircraft, delivered in a single month, nearly 5,000 fighters, nearly 5,000 pilots who have completed the dangerous transatlantic crossing, nearly 5,000 aircraft that now fly under RAF markings, defending British airspace, supporting bombing operations over occupied Europe, preparing for the eventual invasion of Nazi-controlled territory. The impact on the air war is quantifiable. Between September 1940 and September 1942, the RAF fighter force has increased from 1 to 63 operational aircraft to 5,847. The Luftwaffe, meanwhile, has suffered continuous attrition, combating British bombers, supporting operations in North Africa and the Mediterranean, and preparing for the inevitable Eastern Front. German fighter production, working at maximum capacity, cannot match the output of American factories combined with existing British production. The strategic consequence is irreversible. In September 1942, General Oberst Udet, having watched the aerial bridge function perfectly while German options dwindled, takes his own life. He has witnessed the transformation of the air war. Germany's only path to victory required rapid air superiority. The transatlantic ferry operation has ensured that air superiority will never be achieved. The war, from the Luftwaffe's perspective, is already lost. The victory has been transferred to an enemy with unlimited industrial capacity. The pilots themselves become legends without knowing it. Squadron leader James Sutton, the first pilot to complete the transatlantic ferry flight in November 1940, will eventually fly 64 successful crossings. Flight Lieutenant Peter Morrison completes 71 crossings. Civilian ferry pilot Tom Connolly, a former barnstormer from Saskatchewan, executes 103 transatlantic ferry missions before the operation concludes. These men, these impossible aviators, become the invisible architects of air superiority. Their names appear in no newspapers. Their achievements are classified. The public never learns their identities. Yet every RAF victory, every successful bombing run over Germany, every fighter engagement where British aircraft outnumber and outperform German opposition, all of it traces directly back to the ferry pilots who deliver the aircraft. By 1943, the implications have become strategic reality. The RAF begins offensive operations in earnest. Heavy bombers, supported by American P-51 Mustangs and Spitfires delivered through Gander, penetrate German airspace. The Luftwaffe, unable to inflict sufficient casualties, gradually cedes air superiority. German fighters, rationed and restricted, defend the homeland rather than attack. The initiative passes completely to the Allies. From this point forward, the Luftwaffe fights defensively. Germany loses the ability to contest Allied air operations over occupied Europe. The cascade effect accelerates. American bombers, protected by ferried fighters, systematically destroy German war production. Luftwaffe factories are bombed. Aircraft assembly plants are destroyed. Oil refineries are devastated. The very industrial capacity that should have produced overwhelming numbers of German fighters is instead reduced to rubble. The transatlantic ferry operation, working perfectly, delivering aircraft at ever-increasing rates, ensures that American air power can be projected directly over German territory. By D-Day, June 6, 1944, the air war has already been won. Allied air superiority is absolute. The Luftwaffe contributes minimally to the defense. German interceptors are so scarce, so rationed, that they appear as curiosities rather than threats. The invasion of Normandy succeeds partly because the Luftwaffe cannot contest it, and the Luftwaffe cannot contest it because German fighter production has been crippled. And German fighter production has been crippled because American air power, delivered through Gander, has destroyed it. The causal chain is complete, unbreakable. 4 years have passed since the first uncertain flight. The airfield is bathed in pale morning light. The runway stretches into distance, empty and waiting. Behind the control tower, hangars stand open. Inside, mechanics prepare the latest batch of aircraft. A formation of 20 P-51 Mustangs is being assembled, tested, fueled. A klaxon sounds. Ground crews move with practiced precision. The first Mustang taxis to the runway. The pilot, a young Canadian ferry pilot named Michael Chen, flying his 47th transatlantic crossing, receives clearance. The fighter's Merlin engine roars to life. The sound echoes across Newfoundland, carrying across the Atlantic toward a continent transformed by air power. The Mustang accelerates. Speed builds. 120 miles per hour, 150 miles per hour, 180 miles per hour. The nose lifts. The wheels leave concrete. The aircraft climbs into the gray morning sky, banking eastward toward the Atlantic. Behind it, 19 more Mustangs follow in sequence. One by one, they lift off and climb. Within 30 minutes, all 20 fighters are airborne, forming a loose formation, setting course for the Great Circle route. They will fly for 16 hours. They will navigate across 1,600 miles of open ocean. They will arrive over Ireland and disperse to RAF squadrons waiting across Britain. By evening, they will be armed and fueled. Within days, they will be flying combat missions over occupied France. Within months, they will support the liberation of Europe. The camera pulls back. The formation disappears into the Atlantic weather. By war's end, Gander Airfield has delivered over 10,000 aircraft across the Atlantic. The transatlantic ferry operation has saved Britain. It has ensured that American industrial capacity translates directly into Allied air superiority. It has made the invasion of Europe possible. It has been the invisible foundation upon which ultimate victory was built, and it remains classified. For decades after the war ends, the full scope of the operation is unknown to the general public. Gander Airfield continues operating. Some documents are declassified. Gradually, the story emerges. But most of the pilots, the mechanics, the officers who built this impossible operation vanish into history. Squadron leader Donald Curtin retires from the RCAF in 1946. He dies in 1982, his contributions largely forgotten. The ferry pilots, the navigators, the ground crews, they return to civilian life. They do not discuss their wartime achievements. Classification orders remain in place. Official acknowledgement is minimal, yet the strategic impact remains undeniable. The transatlantic ferry operation changed the course of the Second World War. It transferred American industrial capacity across an ocean that Germany believed untraversable. It ensured that air superiority, the critical advantage in modern warfare, would rest with the Allies. It made victory possible. All of it happened in fog and secrecy, at a remote airfield in Newfoundland, executed by men whose names history never recorded. Thank you for watching. If this forgotten story amazed you, subscribe for more untold military operations that changed history. Which secret operation do you think truly changed the war the most? Tell us below. And if you appreciated this documentary, share it with someone who loves military history, because these stories, the ones rarely told, deserve to be remembered.